Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. If I could get everybody to please take a seat. I need the gavel. If I could just please ask everyone to take a seat. Thank you. Okay, I'll just start over again. Good morning. Welcome to the Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. This committee meeting is being convened in person and by electronic means, as authorized under Part 14 of the Procedure Bylaw, City of Vancouver electronic meetings, and as such, committee members and the public may participate in person or by electronic means. Video of committee members speaking, presentations, and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. In case of an emergency, if we need to evacuate the building, I'd like to direct your attention to the exits. There are 2 exits beyond the glass doors and to the left. If the glass doors are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits in the chamber. And please use the stairs and not the elevator. If you require accessibility assistance, please remain at your location and wait for a security staff member to guide you to a safe location. I would also like to highlight that there is a defibrillator located at the end of the hallway outside of the council chamber. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions of the City of Vancouver's team members who work hard every day to help make our city an incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Sim, Councillor Kirby-Yung, Councillor Dominato, Councillor Bly, Councillor Fry, Councillor Montague, Councillor Klassen, Councillor Meisner is in the chair, Councillor Joe.
Present.
You have quorum, Chair Meisner.
Thanks so much. So next on the agenda, we have 2 proclamations today. Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia, followed by Lunar New Year 2025, both of which will be presented by Mayor Sim separately. I will now invite Mayor Sim to read the proclamations respectively. And we'll all meet at the podium.
Thank you. Is this on? Perfect. Morning, everyone, and welcome to City Hall. It's a pleasure to see you. The reason we're all up here, well, first of all, these are my teammates, and we do everything as a team. But I think it's important that the community really understands that while we may not necessarily agree on everything, one thing we do agree on is the proclamation we're going to be reading and the support for the community. And this is one of the only times I'm going to read off of a script because we want to make sure we get this right and we don't miss anything. So today we gather to observe the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia, honoring the lives lost in the tragic Quebec City mosque shooting on January the 29th, 2017. This senseless act of violence claimed 6 lives and deeply impacted Muslim communities while shaking the foundation of safety for all Canadians. Now, the City of Vancouver stands in solidarity with the Muslim community today and always, thanks Mike, as we collectively honor the victims by striving to create a more inclusive and equitable future. Together with Canadians nationwide, we reaffirm our commitment to eradicating Islamophobia and all forms of hate and racism. Our shared resolve extends beyond remembrance. It is an active pursuit of healing, grounded in respect, understanding, and the principles of reconciliation. By acknowledging past injustices and working toward tangible change, we renew our dedication to building a society where every individual can thrive in dignity and peace. And so, like I mentioned earlier, our council members are up here, and they're going to join myself in reading the proclamation and proclaiming January the 29th, 2025 as the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia. So with that, I'll start with Councillor Meisner.
Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia. Whereas on January 29th, 2017, a gunman motivated by white nationalist ideology entered the Islamic Cultural Center Mosque in Quebec City and opened fire on dozens of Muslim worshippers.
And whereas, by the time the shooting had ended, 6 people had been tragically killed and 19 more were injured. Ibrahima Berry, Mamadou Tanu Berry, Khaled Belkacemi, Bakr Tabti, Abdelkrim Hassan, and Azzedine Soufiane lost their lives that night. And I apologize for any pronunciation around that.
And whereas Canadian Muslims across Canada were and continue to be affected by this and other acts of hate, racism, white supremacy, and Islamophobia.
And whereas to commemorate January 29th, Muslim communities in Vancouver have held vigils, discussions, and other events together with the National Council of Canadian Muslims, the BC Muslim Association, Masjid ul Haq, Vancouver, and an annual vigil during evening prayers at the Vancouver Al Jamia Mosque on 8th Avenue, which is the oldest mosque in BC.
And whereas the federal government of Canada, as well as the cities of Toronto, Mississauga, Brampton, Markham, Hamilton, and Windsor have all designated January 29th as a day of remembrance and action on Islamophobia. Many municipalities across Canada commemorate the events of January 29th with their Muslim community partners.
Now, therefore, I, Ken Sim, the Mayor of the City of Vancouver, on behalf of all of my teammates on council, all the elected officials, and everyone who chooses to work at the City of Vancouver, do hereby proclaim January the 29th, 2025 as Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia in the City of Vancouver. Now, I do want to make one comment as well before I welcome comments here. One thing I've learned on my journey as being an elected official here, we got to work with the Vancouver Police Department quite a bit. And I think it's important that the community understands, and not just the Muslim community who is completely aware of this, but the broader community. We talk about hate, we talk about racism. One thing that doesn't present to the general population here is the amount of hate that goes underreported in the Muslim community. And we have to acknowledge that, individuals, a lot of individuals in the Muslim community come from different places where the governments or the police aren't as receptive. And so there's a fear in reporting these issues. And so I on behalf of Mayor and Council, we want to put a plea out there to the broader community to understand that this is actually the case. And, we want to make a plea to the Muslim community that they can feel safe in reporting these incidents, because we want to be there for the community. It's just hard for us to be there for the community if we don't know that these issues, if they're not reported. And so with that, can I give that for you? I do want to welcome Anwar Latif, General Secretary, Vancouver Islamic Center, to say a few words on behalf of the Muslim community. Now, Anwar Latif is a dedicated community leader and seasoned business professional. He has worked at the Vancouver Islamic Center in South Vancouver for over 20 years. Under his stewardship, the center has grown to serve as a vital hub for the local Muslim community, accommodating 1,100 attendees across 2 Friday prayer sessions. Beyond spiritual services, the center has spearheaded initiatives such as food distribution programs, fostering community welfare and engagement. So please feel free to come up. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thanks for your words and invitation. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of the Muslim community of Vancouver. It is with a heavy heart that we remember the victims of the horrific attack at the Quebec City Mosque in 2017. Their loss is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of hate and intolerance. We thank the City of Vancouver for recognizing January 29th as the Day of Action Against Islamophobia. This is an important step, a public declaration that this city rejects hatred and bigotry. But it cannot be just a symbolic gesture. While we appreciate this acknowledgement, we must be honest and say there is much more work to be done. Islamophobia continues to impact the lives of Muslims in our city and across the country. This proclamation must be a call to action. Let us all commit to building a truly inclusive society where everyone feels safe and respected. Let the memory of victims inspire us to create a better future free from fear and discrimination. Thank you. Azay? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be unto you. Peace is something that's sorely needed in this world today. January 6th, when the Quebec mosque shootings occurred, was devastating. And January 29th, this day, this proclamation is very important, not just to acknowledge what happened, but to realize that the call to action belongs to all communities. Our communities should be free of hate, free of violence, free from discrimination and hatred. That year was a devastating blow. And we thought through the work that happened from so many places, from so many communities, provincially, within this city, all the suburbs, and in fact, across Canada and around the world, those were shots that rang out, that shook the world up. And the work towards combating Islamophobia came in full swing. And we thought it would be better. We thought things would be better. And they were for a while. But then they got worse, and there were more attacks, the London attacks, the attacks all over in every major city across the world. They mounted and mounted. And now it's not just Islamophobia, there is anti-Palestinian racism. There are people that are demanding their self-determination and they're seen as terrorists. In this city, I've seen rhetoric in these chambers and in chambers across demonizing people that are just fighting for their freedom. And that is something that we are violating the spirit of this proclamation and this award when we don't come to terms with the fact that people have to apply themselves to do the right thing. So my dear respected brothers and sisters, our mayor and council and everybody in public service, you represent everybody. You represent every single party. And this is where we need to see where fairness lies, where justice becomes a reality. There should be an impartiality to it. And in understanding, we can bring out the best in each other. So we remember these people, we remember this day, but we stand united. We stand united as community, as brothers, as sisters of the human family. And it is said that when God created this world, we were all created in nations and tribes, not to fear or mistrust one another, but to know each other. So let's know each other better. We're going to have disagreements. This is the push and pull of life. I don't have to like words that I've heard you said, but I know that we can have more words, and we don't stop. We don't stop until we have an understanding that we are brothers and sisters, and we can do the very best together. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you. There are a few words we got.
Absolutely.
But bro, I appreciate it. Each and every one of you. Thank you. For me to hand.
I'll meet the guy and then we will arrange the.
Quick clothing change, and we're off to round two. It's so good seeing everyone here today. Once again, I'm going to read off of a script here because I want to make sure we capture everyone here. Because if, I think you guys all know I can ramble on forever. So in just 1 week, we will be celebrating Lunar New Year, one of the most significant annual festivities in the Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, and other communities, like Singapore, Malaysia, you name it. This year marks the Year of the Snake, beginning on January the 29th, 2025, and it's celebrated for 15 days. The snake symbolizes wisdom, charm, elegance, and transformation. People born in the year of the snake are believed to be intuitive, strategic, and intelligent. My son was born in the year of the snake. I really don't know if he takes after his dad, then definitely not. If he takes after his mom, then absolutely. He's gonna hate me for that joke. He's a great kid. Yeah, exactly. As we usher in the year of the snake, we're happy to announce that the Vancouver Spring Festival Parade will be held on February the 2nd this year in Chinatown. Now, I do want to acknowledge representatives and dear friends from the following organizations who are here with us today. Helen Jian from the Chinese Benevolent Association of Vancouver, Fred Kwok, Helen, from the Chinese Cultural Center of Greater Vancouver. And by the way, one of the super instrumental in putting up the neon lights in Chinatown. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, they are incredible. I know there are a lot of things. I should stop commenting on everything or we'll be here forever. Doug Purdy from Success. Good to see you, Doug. Raymond Chung from the Chinese Freemasons Vancouver branch. Mike Jang from the Sean Yi Benevolent Association of Canada. Frank Wong from the 2025 Vancouver Chinatown Spring Festival Celebration Committee, Raymond Tam from the 2025 Vancouver Chinatown Spring Festival Celebration Committee again, and Stephen Cheng from the Chinese Benevolent Association. Pardon? Oh, sorry, sorry, I don't have my glasses on here. Cyrus. Oh, Cyrus, sorry. I got to wear my glasses here. It was crossed off here. Cyrus, really great to see you from the Vancouver Chinatown Merchants Association. And so, thanks, Mike. And so, we deeply appreciate all your contributions for everything you do for Chinatown and the broader community. And so now, our team, we're going to read the Lunar New Year Proclamation. So, once again, we're going to start on this side this time. Pete?
Thank you. Office of the Mayor, City of Vancouver, British Columbia Proclamation, Lunar New Year Week. Whereas the City of Vancouver is home to a multitude of cultures and languages from around the world and values diversity as a source of strength.
And whereas the City of Vancouver believes that celebrating diversity, be it gender, ability, ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation, helps to create a vibrant community in which all individuals live in mutual respect and peace.
And whereas the City of Vancouver is home to a large and diverse Asian Canadian community that has contributed significantly to the social and economic vitality of the city.
And whereas Lunar New Year encompasses many traditions, including that of Chinese, Vietnamese, and Korean cultures, and it is one of the most important celebrations of the year for many Vancouver residents.
And whereas Lunar New Year celebrations have become an integral tradition in the city of Vancouver.
Now, therefore, I, Ken Sim, the Mayor of the City of Vancouver, on behalf of all of our elected officials and everyone who chooses to work at the City of Vancouver every single day, do hereby proclaim the week of January the 29th through February the 4th, 2025 as Lunar New Year Week in the City of Vancouver. Gung hei fa choi. Now, we'd love to invite you up here to take a photo, but also if you want to say a few words, that would be great too.
Thanks, City of Government strong support for us Chinatown Spring Festival. We think, believe, get to better than better. Thanks and wish everybody Happy New Year.
I gotta say, Gong Hei Fa Choi for the city of Vancouver, and with the leadership from the city council under Ken Sim and all the councilors. City of Vancouver getting better than ever, and we're looking forward to enjoy the Year of the Snake with and citizens or residents of City of Vancouver. And the New Year parade been a tradition in the Chinatown, and then for the last 51 years, and it will go on as like before, never before. This year we have a lot more participants, and will be a lot more vibrant compared with the past years. And on behalf of the organizing committee of the the Vancouver Spring Festival Parade, I invite all you guys to join us this year and then enjoy that very happy moment. And looking forward to have every one of you over there 1 week from now. And wishing every one of you have a very prosperous and auspicious year, 2025. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Mayor Sim, for the proclamations and all the community members that came out this morning to mark those important days. So we'll now continue with the plan for today. Any comments on agenda items can be sent to the committee using the web form on the city's website, and a link to that form will be posted on X on Van City Clerk. I'd also like to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I remind the committee that when addressing speakers and the city's team members, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. Today, we have 3 reports and 2 member motions on the agenda. The committee will recess the meeting and break at noon for lunch. The committee will then reconvene at 1 p.m. if necessary to continue to deal with the remainder of the agenda. If needed, the committee will recess at 5 p.m. for a dinner break and reconvene at 6 p.m. to complete the agenda. And if the meeting does not finish today, we will reconvene next Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 at 3 p.m. So the committee will now consider matters adopted on consent. We have reports 1 and 3 on the consent agenda for the committee's consideration for adoption, and we will hold report 2 for speakers. So before we consider the consent agenda, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict of interest to disclose? Okay, not seeing any. So does any member wish to hold any of the consent items, 1 or 3, for debate or questions to team members? Not seeing anyone on the queue. Okay, so we have reports 1 and 3 on the agenda for consent approval. Would someone like to move adoption? Okay, moved by Councillor Bly and seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. Any opposed say nay. That carries unanimously. So the following have been approved on consent. Contract award, report 1 for tree removal and associated services in Stanley Park. And report 3, change order for consulting services for ServiceNow resources augmentation. Okay, so we'll now go to report number 2. That will be contract award for consulting services for City of Vancouver, False Creek South Landowners Conceptual Development Plan. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose? Okay, not seeing any. So this item does not have a staff presentation, but was held to hear from registered speakers. Committee members, are there any questions to staff? Please add yourself to the queue. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I do have a couple questions for staff, and it's just really about if staff can provide some. Do we have staff, by the way, to speak to this one? Just wondering who the staff will be.
We have Armin here in the chamber, and she'll be able to answer questions.
Fantastic, thank you. And it's just, we have obviously a very interested stakeholder group with respects to the co-ops and the renewals there, and we've been continuing to stay in contact with them and working closely. I'm just wondering if staff can provide some comments on the nature of what this report is about, if it's sort of a infrastructure readiness or overall land use planning relative to the direction that council has already passed and commitments that have been made to the co-op lease renewal and the methodology. And so I'm just looking to kind of clarify the positioning around, this one. And I see that we have our Deputy City Manager to speak to that.
Thank you, Karen Levitt, Deputy City Manager. As council knows, we've deeply consulted with the community. There's 6 different tenancy types in False Creek South. There's been lots and lots of consultation up until this point. The plan with the contract before you today is to work with Arup as the lead consultant, and they will be engaging some subcontractors to develop a revised landowner development concept for False Creek South, for the city-owned land in False Creek South, roughly 80 acres. And the first stage of the work, and as is indicated in the report, the first phase is to develop a work plan, and part of that would be a stakeholder engagement plan. So we will be developing some formal touch points with the community in there as we develop the full work plan. To the second part of your question, the outcome of the work in this through this contract will be a landowner conceptual development plan that will be brought to council as landowner for their consideration.
Okay, and if I can follow up on that then, so just for further clarity, so we've got some really active groups, as I mentioned. So for example, the Replan Group and False Creek South Neighborhood Association. And so Just looking for confirmation that once that stakeholder plan is developed, that they will be engaged and involved in the consultation, and that council's previous direction on that is guiding that process and stands.
Yes, definitely Replan, which is a subcommittee of the Falls Creek South Neighborhood Association, will be consulted at the right time through the development of the landowner conceptual development plan.
Okay, and if I can ask one further clarity for follow-up, because these are questions that I think a few of us have received, which is around the ongoing lease renewal framework and the renegotiation of the long-term ground leases, that work continues, but this work needs to happen first around, am I correct, sort of in the sequencing? But again, the previous council direction stands, but
I presume we're referencing the co-op lease renewal framework here?
yeah, that was the question we got around the long-term ground lease with co-ops in Falls Creek South, based on the methodology for the co-op housing lease renewals.
When council approved that lease renewal framework, which was several years ago now, large development potential sites, that was roughly the language, I don't remember the exact language used, were exempt from that framework until there was clarity around the development, the large site redevelopment. So it doesn't technically apply, that framework, right now to the Falls Creek South co-ops. And the co-ops are aware of that. And our team has been negotiating with the two co-ops with near-term lease expiries, and negotiations, I believe in one case, are resolved for the near term, for an interim period, and for the other are close to resolution.
Okay, I'll leave it there because I see Councillor Dominato also has questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Chair, and similarly, yes, Councillor Kirby-Young and I received a couple of questions from the community, so I won't go over those, but I would love to hear any further, because I think staff have addressed those, but I would love to hear a little bit more from staff on Arup Canada's experience in dealing with an acreage of this site. I think you cited 80 acres, and I wasn't very familiar with them, and what we're really authorizing here is an agreement for consulting services, and I'd just love to hear a little bit more about the company and their experience in BC and in Vancouver, or in general on large-scale projects like this.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So staff went through a rigorous RFEOI and then RFP process to land at the contractor selected before you today. I don't have at my fingertips Arup's full set of experience with similar sites. I can assure you they do have similar experience. We probed quite deeply in our interviews with them. Arup is a global firm. It's primarily an engineering firm, and that's of note. Just to Councillor Kirby-Young's question, the focus of the work at hand will be really on technical and financial feasibility. So we're really digging in on the engineering side, soil contamination, sea level rise, infrastructure and amenities, much more than on the design side. You know, what will the buildings look like, and so on. That's the work at hand right now, and that's all to inform council as landowner eventually, or to help council make a decision about how to move forward with a large site redevelopment.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow up to that, as what I heard also in response to the questions was that they will be potentially doing some subcontracting, and that would include companies or organizations that would do that stakeholder relations and outreach piece. Is that correct?
There are a number of potential contractors that range from different subspecialties like geotechnical and transportation, there was, if I remember correctly, 8 or 9 or 11 of these. We won't necessarily engage them all. The way we've structured this is phase 1 will be to decide what we need. And that's a cost control thing as much as a thoughtful work planning kind of approach. With respect to stakeholder engagement, we don't anticipate a lot of stakeholder engagement at this phase throughout the development of the development concept. This will largely be work council does as landowner. We will engage the community to hear input at some specific milestones, but it's not going to be a very big part of this work. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's all my questions. And I'm also, we have a speaker, so we'll wait for that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Dominato. So we will now hear from registered speakers for this report. Public speakers should state whether they are in support or opposition of the recommendations and may only speak once. I will also ask speakers if they are residents of Vancouver if it's not noted on the speakers list. Our first public speaker is Robin Chan, project manager from Replan. Good morning, Robin.
Hi, thank you very much. So thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Robin Chan. I'm the project manager for Replan and the Falls Creek South Neighborhood Association, and my family and I have lived in Falls Creek South since 2018. It's my privilege to speak to you today on behalf of the Falls Creek South community, who have been working together for over a decade on a resolution to lease expiry, housing insecurity, and the future of our community. While there have been many starts and stops over that time, I hope that this step is the beginning of that resolution. As noted, our community has been here before when a landowner's conceptual development plan was received for information by council in 2021. So there are some questions to raise about this process, including what's different this time, how can we land that win-win-win solution, and how can the Falls Creek South community contribute to that good outcome for everyone? So first, I'd like to acknowledge as part of this, the relationship that's being established between myself and Replan and city staff working on this plan. I hope everyone can appreciate that both teams have been all working on this for a very long time, and I look forward to continuing the collegial relationship that's developing. On that note, we're also looking forward to opportunities for meaningful community input into the conceptual development plan, the scenario planning, and how we get there, and through a collaborative working relationship with ARUP and with city staff. And we hope to build on Council's unanimous support for the income and housing mix in Falls Creek South and for the development of new co-op housing on public land through community land trusts by focusing the conceptual development options on the retention and expansion of non-market housing on public land in our community. We know that we need more affordable housing everywhere, and Falls Creek South is the place to do that. Finally, I hope that Council can appreciate that this report, while a welcome step forward, represents another delay in what we all thought would happen after the 2021 landowners plan process. That was going on 4 years ago now, and with a stated 2-year timeline in this report and a community planning process still to come, we hope that Council and staff will act swiftly on the stated intention to extend co-op leases in Falls Creek South by offering long-term lease extensions to the non-market and co-op housing in our community to provide the same certainty through this extensive conceptual planning process that is available to strata owners. We're looking forward to the opportunity to work closely with ARUP and staff to find the best path forward for stewarding the affordable mixed income legacy of Falls Creek South. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to continuing to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. That is the end of our speakers list on this item. Thank you for coming to speak this morning. Would someone like to move a motion? Okay, moved by Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Joe. Committee members, is there any discussion? Councillor Dominato, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I did just want to acknowledge Robin's comments and a number of the community members who are in regular touch with us about this work and just acknowledging, I know it's been a very long play, and it's one of the things I've learned being here is that sometimes there's more hurdles than you anticipate, and it takes time, and community engagement takes time. But what I appreciate about this coming forward is this is actually moving things forward, getting these consulting services in place. And I think our Deputy City Manager, Karen Levitt, really addressed some of the scope of that work and how important that is, particularly given the location. And so I think that, I'm thinking about sea level rise and other things, but I think that this is a step forward. This is moving the work ahead. And what I've heard consistently from staff, but also in the direction that council's given previously, is engagement with the residents, with the co-ops, with the community, and for the betterment of the neighborhood, but also for the city. And so I appreciate your continued engagement with us and sharing your concerns, and we share that with staff. And but I think this does move things ahead, and I look forward to what we hear back from the consultants. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dominato. Councillor Klassen.
Just a few brief comments to the speaker and also to the her colleagues here in the chamber today. I just wanted to first of all acknowledge the work and the dedication that you've had towards looking at this. When we met, I believe it was earlier last year, there was I remember a very striking statistic of about 36 or 37% of people in Falls Creek South were over the age 65. And which is why I think having a very clear-headed approach towards seniors-friendly housing and being sort of seniors-friendly in terms of the vision for this part of the city as well. There's been numerous conversations with Broadway Lodge that are kind of inching forward, I would say, in some ways. But just wanted to reflect upon that. And we are going to be releasing our updated draft plan for seniors, communities, and seniors and community in I think in a couple of weeks' time. So I hope that some of those things resonate with members of the community as well. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Klassen. Okay, I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, if you could please take us to the voting screen, and committee members, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That completes report 2. We will now move to council member motions. The next item is motion 1, effective water use in the City of Vancouver. It is to be moved and introduced by Councillor Kirby-Yung. Before we begin with this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose? Okay, Councillor Kirby-Yung, you have 2 minutes to introduce your motion. Please go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Chair. I'm pleased to introduce this motion, which is entitled Effective Water Use in the City of Vancouver, for a reason. The motivations in bringing this motion forward are both pragmatic and practical in terms of affordability and for residents and running efficient infrastructure in the City of Vancouver and the region, as well as environmental. We know with water metering that it's people pay as you go. And so typically, if you look at the surrounding region and across the country, water metering has been in place in West Vancouver, Burnaby, Richmond, Surrey, I should say, and then Burnaby has taken a decision last December to move forward with it. And typically what you see is that the majority of residents are paying less because the conscious individuals are not paying for their neighbors that perhaps may not be as conscious with water usage. And generally with introduction of water metering, there's a reduction overall in terms of how much people tend to use. So I think there's an affordability benefit here. From an environmental perspective, a lot of people might say, well, we live in a rainforest, and do we have a water shortage? We have increasing heat events. Projections show that in the summer of 2025, it will be the hottest on record. People thought that was 2024. And we also have extreme waterfall events. We're seeing a lot of pressure on our infrastructure in the region, which is driving up costs. And so if we can better manage that, it certainly makes a difference. I'll note in West Vancouver, after the implemented water metering, they saw a reduction in usage of about 44%. And in Richmond, it was about 35%. When you look at some of the work that has been done, for example, by groups like the Canadian Water Network, which is a nonprofit organization, they consider this to be a best practice. They hosted a roundtable across the country, and I think council's received some of this correspondence and showed a case study that Halifax had a reduction in cost there. It can enable earlier leak detection in terms of water usage. It's equitable in terms of people paying for what you use. And I think there's a conservation mindset. We are, I think, focused now on things like food waste because food costs have gone up. We turn off our lights when we leave. We get a bill for electricity. We can see how much we use. Even when we get a cell phone, we buy a plan that supports our usage. And water is one core asset that I don't think we can take for granted. The last thing I'll note is that this is a report back. It's asking for information, including a financial impact analysis on what that would mean for residents' rates and affordability, as well as benefits to the city in managing infrastructure and costs. And I think it will be helpful for council to have that foundational information to make policy decision moving forward around
Your time, Councillor Kirby-Yung.
potential to implement this in Vancouver.
Thank you very much. Sorry to cut you off. Okay, thanks. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Joe. Okay, we will now hear from registered speakers for the motion. Public speakers should state whether they're in support or opposition of the motion and may only speak once. I will also ask speakers if they are residents of Vancouver, if it's not noted on the speakers list. Our first speaker is Charles Irish. Do we have Charles on the phone? Not on the phone. Okay. We'll come back to them. Speaker number 2 is Kim Bondi on the phone. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call. I am not a resident of Vancouver, but I am a property owner in the city, and I will be speaking in opposition to this motion, and I will be specifically referencing number 6 and number 10 on the motion. I am a landlord in the city of Vancouver, and there are 3 units on this property, and I am on metered water and metered sewer. The issue that I have with specifically number 6 is affordability. I'm having to pay for the meter on an annual basis, and while it represents a small annual fee, it does add up over time. It's about $40 per quarter, but if we extrapolate that over the lifetime of the property, it does represent a significant issue for me. I'm trying to provide affordable housing for 3 tenants. There are 3 properties, and yet there's only 1 meter. So for me to provide information to my tenants with 1 single water meter, when I have consulted with the City of Vancouver, they said that that is impractical. I've asked for daily use. I've asked for weekly use, monthly use, as Councillor Kirby mentioned, like a cell phone or hydro, etc. But I was told that that was an impractical request on my part. So I can't really provide information to my tenants to reduce their water use. Now, I'm also on metered sewer, and metered sewer provides a bit of an issue because the differential between water coming in and water coming out, that to me represents a more equitable way, because what are you doing with that water that's not coming out into the sewer? Often that represents water that might be used for watering lawns, etc. So I'm not seeing how meters have really helped with affordability. I receive a quarterly statement here from the City of Vancouver, and it shows it in the number of liters per day and the number of toilet flushes per day. And while that is some information, it's really not a practical way of providing information to residents. In terms of item number 10 here on the motion, fair and equitable way of charging residents, right now I feel that while I am on meters, that I'm being disproportionately penalized because the rest are paying a flat rate. So those are, and I do come with a solution, and the solution is to charge residents potentially based on the differential between the metered water coming in and the sewer water coming out. And I just don't feel that meters have helped me in terms of affordability. I can't ask my tenants to stop using the toilets or using their water, and I don't believe that this is an effective way to reduce water consumption. I think that there are alternatives, possibly incentives for people. I believe Port Coquitlam incentivized the transfer from 13-liter per flush toilets to 6-liter per flush toilets,
Sorry, Kim, you are a bit over time, but
all right.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now go back to the first speaker that wasn't on the line to see if they're there. Charles Irish? No, okay. We don't have Charles on the line, so we will move on. That is the end of our speakers list. Thank you to our speaker for calling in to speak to the Standing Committee this morning. Committee members, is there any discussion? I see Councillor Klassen first. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much. This is always a conversation that's been recurring here in the city for, I think, the last decade and a half or so. It's come to the chamber and not got much beyond doing what we do with current new builds in a lot of cases, which is to have installations of water metering. The water metering here is not, we still are paying flat fees as far as the city. My question through you, Chair, to staff, and I see we just have the city manager. Do we have a rough number of doors that we would be looking at in terms of installation for water meters if we were to undertake this program?
Thanks for the question. So that's the type of information that we will be reporting back to council, assuming council proceeds with the motion. We certainly have that. I don't have it at hand, though.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you a few more questions if that's okay, and if you don't have the answers, we'll look forward to the reporting back. Do we have a rough idea in terms of the cost of the monitoring program? I don't think this is like hydro that would have an electronic. Perhaps it would, but the actual going around and monitoring the amount of water usage per domicile, I guess we would have to know that as well.
So we already have that system in place now because we do have many metered properties. We're in the process actually of replacing it. So we can certainly provide updates on that, but that's an investment that the city needs to make regardless. Really, the incremental investment is the water meters themselves. That would be the biggest cost impact from proceeding with a plan like this.
So we are, to my understanding, so that we're monitoring the cost of water usage through a sub area, perhaps, or
Well, we do, so Councillor, we have metered properties in Vancouver and non-metered properties. So for metered properties, it is water usage by that specific property.
right? Okay.
And that is measured and billed, and we have a system to collect that data now. We're, as I mentioned, upgrading that system because it's at end of life, but that's an investment that the city will need to make regardless.
And presumably, as a result of this motion, that we would get the per door installation costs, what it would take
Absolutely.
to dig in, connect a meter to an underground water connection to the street, what have you, right?
Yes. So we can certainly, there's been a lot of work done on this over the years, and we can certainly provide council with that background.
Do we have any sense of how successful our restrictions endeavor has been with Metro to try and really communicate those water restrictions, the limitations? Have they been able to get our water usage way down?
So the annual water restrictions and the kind of staged regime that's in place now through Metro actually does have a significant impact. Again, we can provide the background on that to council. And metering as a complement to that, or as an alternative to that, we can provide some background on that as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Given that this is a report back, I will support it. I am very conscious, and I have heard from those who are concerned about the actual hard costs, which are at this point kind of unknown to us, because one would assume that there's going to be an operational cost to this, in addition to a hardware and installation that is probably a one-time that will be looked after as well, and those would be sort of counterbalanced against some of our more communications efforts around water restrictions, which I know people are generally being much better in terms of their usage. At least I've noticed the trend that way. But with that said, I think it's just, again, for all of us to be very conscious around that very important pillar of affordability at a time where a lot of households are feeling that pressure on their annual and sort of daily costs of running their household. So again, I'm looking forward to getting the information back, but I'm going to be looking very carefully at those numbers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If I could, through you, questions of the city manager. Yeah, so I was a little confused by this motion versus the existing city policy. According to our own city webpage, the accelerated citywide water metering program is started in 2024, installing meters on all remaining unmetered houses to be done neighborhood by neighborhood. So I'm curious how this new direction might change that existing policy direction, or is that?
So I think, Councillor, yeah, that is the type of information that we can get a more substantive response back to council on, in terms of what the distinction between the current approach that the city is taking and either a more accelerated or across the board installation of watering meters. It is a gradual process that the city is undertaking now. So if council were interested to accelerate that, there will be implications that we will be able to describe.
So perhaps the name of our program, the Accelerated Water Metering Program, is inaccurate?
I think it's accelerated relative to what it was before,
Gotcha.
but it could be accelerated further if that was council's interest.
Okay. Following up on that, so that the Accelerated Citywide Metering Program that we have currently indicates it's focused on single-family homes, because, and I'm quoting from our website, currently all industrial, commercial, and institutional buildings, as well as multifamily residences, are metered, which is captured in Kirby Young's motion. But does it currently include, because I don't see this in the motion or our existing program, does it include city-owned buildings like libraries, community centers, and more specifically, does it include city-owned assets like decorative water fountains or swimming pools, that kind of thing?
That's a great question. So that is an issue that we have been working on, and I would have to get you the details though, Councillor, but there certainly have been city properties, parks, et cetera, that have not been metered. or have, and in fact, in some cases, have not been paying the cost of water. So that's an issue that we have been working out internally around cost allocation, but happy to provide more detail on that as well.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm going to jump back on then.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Fry. Councillor Bly.
Yeah, thanks very much. I am speaking in support of this motion with a couple caveats. And my time on sitting as the Vancouver representative at the Water Committee at Metro for 5 years sort of underpins a lot of my interest in this. And certainly water metering is a consistent conversation that's brought up at the Metro Committee related to Vancouver's under sort of maybe underperforming, not sort of, any one person's fault. I think just the age of our city being what it is compared to neighboring municipalities is policies like this came into place long after sort of Vancouver was largely built when it comes to single family homes. So I met with staff many times on this topic and looked at ways that we can move this forward and sort of actually hesitated to bring something forward to council just simply because staff are working on this effort and have been for some time, and the costs associated, as I understand it, with the City of Vancouver bringing in a policy that both would be borne by the residents of Vancouver, but then also for the City of Vancouver to take on those capital costs to sort of take a leadership role, let's just say. So I'm supportive of this motion, again, with the caveat that I'm conscious of the costs. Water restrictions made a huge impact on water usage overall, and Vancouver is one of the best performing municipalities when it comes to water conservation based on those restrictions. So while I support the motion to get more information back, I'm not sure I'll be supporting the fulsome strategy depending on what comes back, because I believe staff are working and have been working on, as Councillor Fry points out, a plan to accelerate water metering across the city. And we're seeing a change in zoning, right, and redevelopment, which will bring water meters to new developments, particularly around the Missy Middle and the multiplex, and a lot of the work that's in the Vancouver plan, in a much more, I think, sustainable and sort of constructive sort of progress and pacing that both suits the city and the city's finances, as well as our ratepayers and residents across the city. So sort of a support to get more information back, but quite a lot of concern. And again, I can't help but sort of underscore the point that Councillor Fry just raised, that we have brought policy that's been supported by this council, not all, but some councillors, related to what really is deemed by the Water Committee at Metro and others as a tremendous waste of water, and that is related to any non-circulatory decorative water features in the city. And so we've just got to make sure we take a holistic view here. And while this is a popular idea at face value, I think we need to recognize that there's a lot that underpins our water usage across the city. And if we're going to take this approach, we need to be very holistic in how we look at how we're utilizing our water supply from a regional perspective and a city perspective. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bly. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I'm supportive of water metering. Certainly, I think water is our most precious resource, and it'll be more valuable than oil in the future. And of course, we all saw the horrible outcomes in Los Angeles where they ran dry water. So I think recognizing the critical importance of water conservation and really signaling, I mean, if it has no value, then it's worthless. And I think this is sort of a step in the direction that we're assigning some value to water. And I think that's important. I do think that I've submitted an amendment, and I guess we can jump to an amendment queue.
Yeah, I'll just move us there now. Please continue, Councillor Fry.
Yeah, and I think just to the point that the city manager, responded, that we do have this air quotes accelerated program that I think this motion from Councillor Kirby-Yung does propel it forward, and actually indeed would hopefully accelerate our accelerated program. But I think that we also need to walk the talk, and I think it's important that if we're asking to install water meters on other on single-family homes and ratepayers in the city of Vancouver, that we should also be monitoring our own water consumption. So I've added what I hope is a supportive amendment to this, which is to include pools, decorative water fountains, and features including city-owned assets and parks for the report back on any possible methodology for water metering and how that might roll out. Because I think it is important that we, as a city, as we're showing leadership in this particular field, we should also be looking in a mirror and taking that internal lens as well. So there you go.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fry. I do have a seconder for the amendment. Seconded by Councillor Bly. Thank you. Committee members, any discussion, please add yourself to the queue. Councillor Montague, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. It's actually just a quick clarifying question, I think, to the city manager through you. I just noticed that, like, pools, decorative water fountains, and parks, is there an issue with the current timeline in there of end of April 2025 for a report back, considering those are park board jurisdiction issues or assets? Mic issues.
Sorry, it says your mic is on, but the light's not on.
Yeah.
1 moment, please.
There we go. Sorry about that. So I think in terms of being able to provide some general information to council around what the current state is and the extent to which there may be any issues here or implications of moving faster or slower on those particular, my sense is that our team would be able to report back on that. There may be some gaps in that data. There may be some questions around jurisdiction to actually implement it, but we can highlight those as well.
Okay. Thanks, Chad. That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Montague. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else on the queue to speak to the amendments. So, Councillor Bly, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually a good amendment and hopefully will be supported. I'll be supporting the amendment itself. I think we're looking for information here. And so this will really just round out that information and make sure that we're able to make a fully informed discussion or decision when that staff report comes back. So appreciate Councillor Fry bringing it forward and happy to support.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, not seeing anyone else on the queue to speak to the amendment, so we'll now go to a vote on the amendment. Council, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel on the amendment, please. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll now go back to the main queue. Councillor Fry, any closing comments?
Nope. Thank you. Thanks to Councillor Kirby-Yung for accelerating the acceleration.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. That's a good part to start off with. And I think what hasn't been mentioned is that if you look at the City of Vancouver's website for the accelerated citywide water metering program, it says, and I quote, "We are working towards universal water metering for all customers by 2040. It's 2025. So that's 15 years. I wouldn't describe that as accelerated. I do think that there's some natural intersections as the type of development is changing. We're moving to multifamily. It's already mandated in new builds or in renovations, et cetera. But I think there's quite a delta of information for council to get back and have a thoughtful conversation about if Burnaby's looking at implementing over a couple of years and we're still 15 years away. And I think Richmond has had metering since 1998. Wrong way around, 2018. Sorry, dropped a number there. So I think that I think there's definitely some more information to get back. It's an important and a fulsome conversation, even hearing around the table. The one person that called in that said, and I'm quoting from one of our speakers, he was disproportionately penalized because he's metered and the rest are on a flat rate. I think that actually speaks to the inherent inequity in the system, that some people are metered and others are paying a flat rate. And I think that's what we want to look at in terms of equity and affordability for billing. There's also a comment too from him that he's metered for sewers, but sewers are one of our issues. We have one of the oldest infrastructure setups in the city, as was referenced by some of my colleagues, and so we're working to really separate our sewers. And if you have reduced use of water, then you have less water flowing into your sewer system. in terms of capacity as we're trying to accelerate and renew and separate some of that. And so we're having to be innovative there about not just the traditional gray sewer infrastructure, but having green infrastructure for rainwater capture. So I think there's a lot of practical intersections here around affordability and infrastructure management. And I think it will be good to have a good fulsome conversation about what that looks like. So I'm looking forward to getting the information back, and I appreciate the discussion around the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. And I'd just like to make some comments. So I'll pass the chair to Vice Chair Dominato just to make some comments. Thank you. Good discussion today. I am supportive of getting this information back while being very mindful of the affordability issue around this. So information is power, and certainly this is an important topic and information for council to have, particularly with water being a scarce resource everywhere in the world, and including in Vancouver, despite the amount of rain that we get every year, despite our climate, we do incur water shortages here in Vancouver, so we need to be responsible. At the same time, I'm very mindful of the affordability challenges that residents are facing. So I'm looking forward to the information that city staff bring back so we can make an informed decision balancing affordability with water use responsible water use here in the city of Vancouver. So thanks everyone for your comments today, and I'll take the chair back. Okay, so I'm not seeing anyone else on the queue to make a comment, so we'll now go to the vote on the amended motion, please. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Okay, so that completes motion number 1. The next item is motion number 2, changes to acting mayor roster 2025. It is to be moved and introduced by Councillor Klassen. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Can't imagine what that would be, but does anyone have a conflict to disclose? Not seen anyone. Okay, so Councillor Klassen, you have 2 minutes to introduce your motion. Please go ahead.
Sorry. I will not take the full 2 minutes, Chair. I'm just asking at the will of my fellow councillors here if we can accommodate the exchange of the acting mayor from October to July and July to October between myself and Councillor Montague. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so that was seconded by Councillor Joe, and we'll just get that up on the screen for council. Okay, so you can see it there. We have no registered speakers for this item. Committee members, is there any discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any discussion, so I'll now call the vote. Clerk, if you could take us to the voting screen, and committee, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so that completes motion 2, and the standing committee portion of this meeting is now complete. We will now convene in council with Mayor Sim as chair to deal with recommendations and actions from today's committee meeting.
There we go. Great, thank you very much. We will now convene in council to deal with the following recommendations and actions from today's standing committee on policy and strategic priorities meeting and urgent business. Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Sim.
Present.
In the chair. Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly. Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague.
Present.
Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner.
Present.
And Councillor Joe. You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. We need a motion to adopt the standing committee's recommendations, reports 1 through 3, and member motions 1 and 2. Thank you, Councillor Montague, seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, passes unanimously. Council, are there any items of urgent business? For example, are there any leave of absent requests needed prior to the next meeting cycle on February the 4th? A reminder that these requests should be submitted in writing to the clerks through the amendments distribution list. And let's look here. Don't see anyone there. Council, sorry, excuse me. So I don't see any items. So would we like to adjourn? Councillor Montague, seconded by Councillor Kirby-Young. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.